Let's begin with this Windows system. So I've downloaded the ArchiWare package from the download page that I showed you, and inside we have these 4 items. There's a README. One of the prerequisites is that you have the Visual Studio 2015 redistributional software installed, which is present on most Windows installations current as of 2024, but for older Windows servers it might be needed to run this executable, which is included in the zip, but this is a recent Windows, so I'm just going to run the MSI package. So we get the usual setup wizard, so we click next, we agree to the license terms. We install in the default folder, and I'll come back and tell you what that folder is in a moment, and then we click next to begin the installation. So that completed, and you see the installer package, which is now in the background, has indicated that the installation is complete. And part of the installation is that a browser opens with the P5 web admin interface already loaded. So you can see the browser is pointing to the loopback address for this machine, and we publish our HTTP web admin interface on port 8000. You can also access HTTPS web admin on port 8443. But this is going to be using a self-signed certificate, so it's generally easier just to use HTTP for administration over the LAN, where security isn't going to be an issue. And of course you can point your browser across the LAN or even across a VPN to the IP address of this host to administer it via a web browser in much the same way that you can for many software and appliances these days. So what also gets installed is a little service menu down here where we're able to stop the P5 service. So P5 on Windows runs as a service, so this allows you to stop and restart the P5 service. You can also stop and uninstall the service completely, which would require a reinstallation of P5, and you can open P5 in the browser, which would result in us seeing P5's login screen like this. So that's P5 installed. I'll run through how to go into the web admin interface and to do things like add licenses later in this video. But the one thing I do want to show you is P5 installs into program files, ArchiWare, Data Lifecycle Management Suite, and that's where P5 lives. And the config folder, which I'll also cover later in this video, is where you might go to make a change to the default HTTP port that P5 runs on, which you would do by renaming that file. But otherwise, everything else in this folder isn't something that you need to touch. You can restart P5 via the menu down here, and P5 will now be configured. The service will be to start up when this Windows boots. Something additional to note is that because P5 is running as a service on your Windows operating system, that service won't be able to see drives that you're mapping in the graphical interface here. So for example, if you have access to a network share on a remote server, or maybe you map a drive to that server, then that will not be visible to P5 running as a service on this Windows OS, because it's running in a different context as a different user. There's a mechanism by which you can allow that P5 service to see network shares, however, and there's a separate video on our YouTube channel about this, which is here. So as you can see, it's called Connecting P5 Running on Windows to Network Shares, and you can find this video in our ArchiWare P5 YouTube channel.